Welcome to the Pennsylvania State House. Keep in mind that we tend to call the building by its nickname rather than its given name. The building gets a nickname in the 1820s because of what happened here in the 1770s. As a result, we tend to call it Independence Hall. But when they began building the building in 1732, its name was, and still is, the Pennsylvania State House. The building is originally built to provide a seat of government for the colony of Pennsylvania. The building is about 90% original on the outside. It is about 70% original on the inside. Most of the furniture is from the period. It fits the description of what had been here. There are two items on display that we are certain have been here. The first of which is hanging on the wall behind you. That is the seal of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as it was first adopted in 1785. Now, I doubt there are very few of you here today because of the building's history as a colonial capital. Most people tend to visit because of other events that occurred here. Those events are best summed up in the words of our 16th president. It is in this building that our fathers have brought forth upon the continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. In 1732, when construction had begun, there were many nations in North America, including 13 very different British colonies. Each one of these colonies was a separate political unit, making their own laws. And by the eve of the Revolution, those laws were largely being made by elected assemblies. The colonists were happy to be subjects of Great Britain because of the rights and liberties that gave them. Rights and liberties such as you would expect to find in this room. This room was the Supreme Court for Pennsylvania. Most Americans can recognize this as being a courtroom, and that is because the American legal system began as a copy of the British legal system. It was something the colonists admired. They thought it neared perfection, and they saw no reason to change it. Now, there are some differences between this room and most American courtrooms today, and the most obvious one is right here. We do not use this in the United States anymore. Now, which participant of the legal system do you believe may have been found here? Not different. The defendant, the accused. In the 18th century, when they told you that you were going to stand trial, guess what? They meant that you would literally stand trial and face your accusers. If I were a Pennsylvanian on trial, I imagine I would look rather guilty standing here. But as a British subject, I had rights pertaining to the room, and among them, the presumption of innocence until proven guilty by the evidence presented. But things begin to change for the colonists in 1754. That is when a war breaks out between Great Britain and France. It quickly becomes a global war, lasting nearly 9 years. In 1763, Great Britain comes out the winner, With that victory, they had won a tremendous amount of territory from France, and achieving that victory, they have accumulated a tremendous debt. So they are going to rethink not only how the new territory is governed, but the American colonies as well. So now the king and parliament will begin making laws for the colonies, and for the first time, the colonists are taxed directly. That concerns them because they have no representatives in Parliament, and they see this as a violation of their rights. So beginning with the Stamp Act of 1765 and other acts by the British government to directly tax and control the American colonists, the relationship goes downhill. In September of 1774, representatives from the colonies met down the street at Carpenter's Hall as a political body. That First Continental Congress, as they called themselves, are meeting in response to British legislation that had been passed to punish the colonists for the Boston Tea Party. The First Continental Congress does a number of things. Among them, they sent a petition to the king, which the king ignored. They agreed that they would no longer import British goods, nor see American materials exported to Great Britain. They agreed that they had the right to defend their rights by force of arms. Lastly, they agreed that they would return to Philadelphia the following year if things did not change for the better. So in the spring of 1775, a Second Continental Congress begins meeting in this building in the room across the hall. So let's continue over there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to the assembly room of the Pennsylvania State House, home to the Pennsylvania Assembly. It would also be home to a Continental Congress and a Constitutional Convention. Second Continental Congress begins meeting in this room in May of 1775. We believe they were seated each colony to a table, geographically, from north to south, beginning with New Hampshire in that corner, ending in Georgia in that corner. And they have a war on their hands because fighting had broken out in Massachusetts between New England militiamen and British regular troops on April 19th of 1775, a war that spreads to all 13 colonies, and a war about our rights as British subjects. At this point, there's only a handful of delegates in the room whispering the I word. But that changes significantly in January of 1776 with the publication of a pamphlet called Common Sense, written by Thomas Paine, who pointed out such things as Americans can and should be able to govern themselves. Common sense changes American opinion so much that on June 7th, it is a very confident Richard Henry Lee of Virginia who stands to present the following resolution. Be it resolved that these united colonies are, and are bred up to be, free and independent states, that all allegiance to the British crown is and are bred up to be, totally dissolved. With those words, contractions begin. But there are men in the room who are not ready for this, so a couple of things will happen. First, it's agreed that any vote for independence should be unanimous. And that makes sense. If you are 13 little colonies fighting the greatest military on earth, you better be in it together. The moderates will stall the vote for 3 weeks. As a concession, they will allow a Declaration of Independence to be written just in case they need one. 3 weeks come and go, and the big day is July 4th. Trick question, July 2nd. The debates begin on the 1st of July. Right away, there are 3 states opposing independence. The debates continue into the next day, and they are dominated by John Adams of Massachusetts. On the afternoon of July the 2nd, independence is voted for in this room. Well, you might be thinking, what about the 4th? That all had to do with that declaration. The delegates will spend more than 2 days making more than 70 changes to Thomas Jefferson's original text. Some of the changes are minor. There were men who objected to calling the king a tyrant. Some have serious consequences. An entire paragraph condemning the Atlantic slave trade is removed. But on July the 4th, everybody in the room agrees to what it is they will tell the world why they are doing what they are doing by adopting the Declaration of Independence. Then there was no CNN to cover events live. Americans tended to believe what they read. That is how we come to celebrate it on this day. They will have a legal copy of this declaration, one that the delegates will sign. The signing takes place in this room on August 2nd of 1776. Now, the Declaration of Independence does not create a single, free and independent nation. It creates 13 of them. They are loosely tied together by something called the Articles of Confederation and a British military threat. When the war is over in 1783, these states turn against each other. Things get very bad very quickly. So much there's a call for a convention to meet in this room, beginning in May of 1787, to fix the articles. That convention is presided over by George Washington, who sat in that chair. That is the second item that we are certain have been here. Now, the delegates know that they cannot fix the articles, but they will need to create a new form of government. Because they are exceeding their instructions, they will meet in secret, with the doors and windows closed. But on September 17, 1787, prepared for signing at the front of the room, is the Constitution of the United States. It is a rather unique form of government. The preamble begins, "We the people of the United States." This is power, and it starts with you, the people. It is given to the top. It is not from the top down. But in 1787, that did not include all the people. Still, the men in the room had created America, because into this they had put a mechanism for change. And that would allow this Constitution to come alive and to grow as we grew and matured, both as a nation and a people. It changed as our attitudes changed about such things as slavery and the rights of women. And today it is over 237 years old. Benjamin Franklin was a delegate to that convention. He was the oldest man in the room at age 81. And at the end of the convention, he made this remark. Said during the course of these debates, I had often looked at the sum on the back of the president's chair, trying to determine if it was a rising or a setting sun. At last, at length, I have the happiness to know that indeed it is a rising and not a setting sun. Now, I do not believe that Dr. Franklin was talking about a piece of furniture. I believe that he was talking about the dawning of a new nation within this room. A nation conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. And while I am quoting Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president, I would like to point out that in this room, in April of 1865, Lincoln's body had to lie in state. It had stopped here as it was making that final journey to Illinois. So please keep in mind that none of this is without a cost. That concludes my presentation. We will be going out the door to the left. On the left in the bell tower is a plaque that can tell you and show you about the upstairs. I will meet you at the door if you have any questions, and if not, I will take the opportunity to thank you for visiting us today, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Not for this one. 420 is the one that goes upstairs.
Are these colors authentic?
They are. There's a scientific paint analysis done in the building in the 1980s. They scraped coat after coat after paint. There were some places they went through 50 coats of paint to get chips up the original color, and they were able to reproduce those colors.
Wow, that's fascinating. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Really great presentation. Your voice
No, thank
just
you.
really lends itself
Thank you.
to
You're
this.
very kind.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help. I'll see you later.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sports. I used to read old sports stuff. Now, like, read the first couple sentences and that scans through to the big.